Shocking rift. Jungkook's distance from Jimin and BTS sparks global alarm. A revelation has erupted like a lightning strike across the global K-pop stage. Jungkook, long hailed as BTS's golden magne and celebrated as the unshakable core of the group, is now at the center of a crisis that no one anticipated. The haunting question that now dominates every discussion, every trending hashtag, and every whisper within the ARMY community is painfully simple yet deeply unsettling. Why has Jungkook distanced himself from Jimin, the very member he once described as his safe place, and by extension from BTS as a whole? Is this merely a fleeting tension between brothers in arms, or are we witnessing the slow unraveling of a bond that millions believe to be unbreakable? This is not ordinary speculation. This is not a fleeting rumor. It is a cultural earthquake that has fractured the narrative of unity that BTS has embodied for over a decade. Jungkook's tears, captured in raw images and replayed endlessly across global platforms, have become the defining emblem of this rupture. His visible breakdown was not dismissed as an isolated moment of exhaustion. Instead, it has been dissected as a devastating symbol, evidence that the seemingly invincible fabric binding BTS together may, in fact, be fraying. Observers trace the earliest signs of this rift back to BTS's time in Los Angeles, when the group was preparing for one of their most anticipated phases of activity. Fans noticed Jungkook's once boundless energy fading into detachment. His presence, usually magnetic and unwavering, grew distant. Photographs that once radiated warmth and brotherhood now revealed cold absences, his eyes elsewhere, his smile restrained, his posture guarded. It was during this period that whispers began. Jimin, the member historically closest to Jungkook, seemed quietly burdened. Subtle remarks hinted at difficulty reaching Jungkook, igniting speculation that their once unshakable connection was under strain. For the fandom, this revelation felt like betrayal. Jungkook and Jimin were more than just two members of the same group. They were symbols of safety, reliability, and trust. Fans had long regarded their relationship as a pillar of BTS's strength, proof that amidst the chaos of fame and pressure, there remained an unspoken sanctuary between them. To see that sanctuary collapse, or at least become unreachable, struck directly at the heart of ARMY's faith in the group. What once reassured millions now feeds anxiety. Has something irrevocable changed? The explanations offered have been many, but none sufficient. Some argue that the root lies in personal conflict, an interpersonal fracture magnified by years of proximity and relentless scrutiny. Others insist the true cause is the crushing pressure Jungkook bears, both as an individual and as a central figure in BTS's global empire. His tendency to internalize stress rather than release it, coupled with the staggering expectations tied to BTS's every move, may have reached a breaking point. Yet such explanations remain incomplete. What fans cannot dismiss is the fact that Jungkook's visible withdrawal coincided directly with the cooling of his bond with Jimin, making the timing too pointed to ignore. Every detail has since been treated as forensic evidence. Footage of Jungkook turning away during a late-night walk in Los Angeles has been replayed frame by frame, his every expression scrutinized for hidden meaning. Jimin's voice, trembling during interviews when asked about Jungkook, has been dissected into endless theories. Subtle shifts in choreography, moments of silence during fan meetings, even the distance between their seats at public events, all have been repurposed as proof of a fracture that grows deeper with every passing day. The silence from the group itself has become its own form of communication. It fuels the storm rather than calms it. The absence of clarity breeds only speculation, and speculation, once unleashed, rarely retreats. This silence has left the public to ask, is this deliberate, a strategy to hold attention before a major comeback? Or is it genuine, an unspoken acknowledgement of wounds too raw to expose? Either possibility is troubling. If this fracture is real, it undermines the very foundation of BTS's celebrated unity. If it is manufactured, It calls into question the ethics of manipulating emotional investment for attention. What cannot be ignored is the seismic impact this situation has already had. For over a decade, BTS has been regarded as an invincible unit, a model of resilience, mutual trust, and brotherhood. Jungkook's tears have shattered that narrative. They have exposed the human vulnerability beneath the flawless performances and perfect harmonies. BTS is no longer perceived solely as an indestructible collective of icons. They are now seen as fragile human beings, susceptible to pressure, conflict, and distance. While some argue this humanization deepens their legacy, others see it as the beginning of an irreversible decline. The role of fans in this saga is equally complicated. Every retweet, every slowed-down video clip, every speculative theory adds fuel to the fire. Fans insist their obsession stems from love and loyalty, yet the intensity of their scrutiny risks amplifying the very fracture they fear. What was once private pain has become public spectacle. Loyalty is no longer measured by quiet support, but by the ferocity of speculation. In this paradox, the devotion meant to protect Jungkook and Jimin has instead magnified their struggles, transforming silence into scandal. Beyond the fandom, this phenomenon forces uncomfortable questions about how modern audiences consume celebrity narratives. Are we genuinely seeking truth? Or are we complicit in manufacturing drama out of fragments and silences? Does repetition of a rumor make it truth? Or does it only amplify illusion? Each viral clip, each dramatic headline, and each trending thread blurs the line between authenticity and fabrication. The result is a cycle in which ambiguity itself becomes the main performance, endlessly replayed and consumed. The stakes are high. BTS's anticipated comeback looms as a defining moment. Will Jungkook and Jimin appear reconciled, proving their unity before the world? Or will their distance remain an open wound that choreography cannot conceal? Can fans watch their performances without projecting unspoken conflict onto every glance, every gesture, every smile? Or will every note sung on stage carry the weight of speculation about whether their bond has survived? History offers both caution and hope. In the past, fractures in idol groups have often signaled collapse, yet there are also cases where conflict has transformed into resilience, producing art born of raw honesty. Could Jungkook's tears, painful as they are, one day fuel songs that redefine BTS's legacy? Or are they the prelude to a chapter that marks the slow disintegration of what was once believed to be indestructible? The most sobering truth is this: we may never know the real reason for Jungkook's distance. Silence may be permanent, a shield against further intrusion. But whether the fracture is authentic or orchestrated, its impact cannot be undone. It has already altered how the world views BTS, how ARMY interprets every interaction, and how Jungkook himself will be remembered in the group's story. In the end, the image of Jungkook's tears remains the most haunting symbol of all. It forces us to confront the reality that even the strongest bonds can falter, even the brightest stars can dim, and even the most celebrated idols remain vulnerable to human fragility. Whether this fracture heals or deepens, one fact is undeniable. Jungkook's withdrawal from Jimin and BTS has left a scar too visible, too painful, and too consequential to be ignored. Until the silence breaks, speculation will reign as the only answer to the question that refuses to fade. Why did Jungkook pull away? And so, the storm continues. The world waits. The silence grows louder. And with every passing day, the image of Jungkook, once the unshakable force of BTS, standing apart from Jimin, becomes less a fleeting moment and more a defining narrative of our time. Underneath the tension lies an unresolved dilemma that no statement or performance has yet addressed. If Jungkook, the very symbol of BTS's vitality, chooses distance, what does that imply for the group's future cohesion? For years, ARMY has built its identity on the assurance that BTS was not only a band but also a family. Now, that foundation trembles under the weight of unanswered questions. Every photograph where Jungkook stands apart, every moment Jimin avoids direct acknowledgement, is treated like a verdict in a trial without end. The silence is unbearable, yet it persists, fueling a cycle of obsession that grows harder to contain. Fans want truth, but what if truth is impossible to reveal without breaking something irreparably? What if this fracture, whether real or magnified by perception, becomes the defining shadow over every success the group achieves from this point forward? The world waits for clarity, but clarity may never come, leaving only speculation as the cruel substitute for truth. As the silence deepens, the mystery evolves into something larger than a simple conflict. It has become a symbol of fragility at the heart of global fame, a reminder that even legends are not immune to distance and doubt. Jungkook's withdrawal from Jimin now lingers as a question without answer, shaping every perception of BTS. Until words replace silence, the speculation will continue to echo louder than truth itself. The unsettling silence, Jungkook, Jimin, and the question of truth, the narrative surrounding Jungkook's visible distance from Jimin and, by extension, from BTS as a whole, has reached a point where speculation threatens to outweigh fact. What began as whispers of estrangement has now transformed into an international spectacle. But before we surrender to this growing storm, one question must be asked with unwavering seriousness. Do we truly believe this event is real, or have we allowed ourselves to become entangled in a manufactured drama designed to capture our emotions and monopolize our attention? This is not a trivial inquiry. It cuts to the core of how information is consumed in an era dominated by platforms such as TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and countless media channels that thrive on speed and sensationalism rather than accuracy. Each image, each clip, each fragment of body language has been amplified, dissected, and presented as if it were definitive evidence. But is repetition equivalent to truth? Or does the very act of endless circulation transform unverified fragments into something that only appears factual? Consider the countless videos replayed in slow motion. Jungkook turning away at a Los Angeles pier, Jimin's restrained responses when asked about him, subtle shifts in seating arrangements, and pauses in choreography. Are these fragments genuine signs of fracture? Or are they merely ordinary human moments misinterpreted under the harsh microscope of obsession? Are we, as audiences, uncovering hidden realities? Or are we manufacturing them by imposing meaning where none exists? The stakes of these questions are profound. If Jungkook has indeed withdrawn from Jimin, then this represents a rupture in one of the most celebrated bonds in modern pop culture. But if this narrative is exaggerated, manipulated, or even fabricated for sensational effect, then what does that reveal about the nature of contemporary media and about us, the consumers who willingly participate in its cycles? Can we truly claim innocence if we amplify what may be illusion, lending credibility to stories that may never have existed in the first place? Every retweet, every share, every speculative comment is more than an expression of interest. It is participation in an economy of attention that thrives on controversy. Are we aware that our clicks, our views, and our comments feed algorithms that reward sensational narratives, regardless of their authenticity? And if we know this, why do we continue to indulge in them? Is it out of genuine concern for Jungkook and Jimin, or is it because drama, uncertainty, and scandal satisfy a psychological craving for narrative coherence? The silence of Jungkook and Jimin looms over this discourse like a heavy shadow. Some interpret it as confirmation of tension, while others see it as a strategic decision designed to maintain privacy. But what if silence itself has become the product, repackaged by media actors as an invitation for speculation? Can silence be weaponized to sustain engagement? And if so, are we not complicit in consuming it as though it were evidence? Reflect on the broader implications. How often have narratives of conflict or fracture in celebrity culture been amplified beyond proportion, only to later be revealed as misunderstandings or deliberate fabrications? How often has emotional investment been exploited by media systems that profit from ambiguity? Can we continue to ignore the possibility that this very story, Jungkook distancing from Jimin, may not be a revelation of truth, but rather a construction designed to ensure that our attention remains fixed? The paradox is painful. On one hand, audiences insist on transparency and demand answers. On the other hand, the insatiable appetite for details, theories, and interpretations risks destroying the very privacy they claim to protect. Does the demand for truth justify intrusion into private lives? Or does it transform genuine human pain into a consumable commodity? What ethical boundaries do we cross when we treat the silence of two individuals as raw material for endless speculation? Let us not overlook the psychological cost. If Jungkook's tears are authentic, then they reflect years of accumulated pressure, expectations, and personal struggles that should command empathy rather than dissection. But if these tears have been reinterpreted, exaggerated, or misrepresented, then have we not betrayed the very individuals we claim to support by turning their humanity into spectacle? Does our obsession protect them, or does it exploit them further? We must confront another unsettling possibility. Are we so eager for scandal that we subconsciously prefer narratives of conflict over stability? Does the idea of Jungkook pulling away from Jimin provoke stronger emotions, and therefore stronger engagement, than the reality of their continued unity would? If this is true, then the audience itself becomes a participant in sustaining illusions, preferring drama over truth because it offers more intensity, more conversation, and more fuel for speculation. I end this light. Skepticism is not merely advisable, it is essential. Have we verified the authenticity of these claims? Or are we allowing algorithms and headlines to dictate what we accept as reality? If the sources of this narrative are predominantly clips and commentaries from TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and secondary reporting, then is it responsible to accept them as fact without corroboration? Are we willing to admit that much of what we consume is shaped not by truth, but by the structures of platforms designed to reward virality? This is the responsibility that falls upon us as consumers of information. Do we engage critically, questioning every detail, or do we surrender to the seduction of emotional storytelling? Do we pause to reflect on whether a rumor has been substantiated, or do we contribute to its spread out of instinctive reaction? Each decision determines whether truth has a chance of surviving in a media environment built on spectacle. At this juncture, the audience must reflect honestly. Do you truly believe that Jungkook has withdrawn from Jimin and BTS in the way it has been presented? Or do you suspect that what you are witnessing is a carefully engineered narrative designed to provoke your emotions and secure your engagement? If you are uncertain, does that uncertainty not prove the necessity of skepticism? And if you are certain, on what foundation does your certainty rest? Verified evidence, or repetition of fragments curated for maximum impact? It is perhaps most sobering to recognize that the truth may never be known. If those directly involved choose silence, what authority do we have to impose narratives upon them? Does our desire for explanation justify the creation of stories that may bear no resemblance to reality? Can we accept ambiguity, or are we condemned to chase closure even at the cost of accuracy? The implications extend beyond BTS, Jungkook, or Jimin. They extend into the heart of modern culture, where the boundaries between fact and fabrication are collapsing. If millions can be mobilized by unverified claims amplified by media platforms, what does this say about our collective vulnerability to manipulation? Are we building a society where sensation overrides truth, where narrative eclipses evidence, and where the loudest speculation drowns out the most sober facts? In the end, the reflection is unavoidable. Are we seekers of truth, or are we passive consumers of spectacle? Do we demand evidence, or do we allow ourselves to be carried by the tide of sensationalism? And most importantly, Will we choose to confront these narratives critically, skeptically, and reflectively, or will we surrender to them without resistance, allowing speculation to reign in the absence of truth? The choice belongs not to Jungkook, not to Jimin, not even to BTS. It belongs to us. If silence has now become the loudest sound in this controversy, then the audience must decide how to interpret it. Should we treat silence as confirmation of conflict, or should we understand it as a shield against intrusion? Does the refusal to explain not remind us that public figures, despite their visibility, still retain the right to privacy? And yet, does such silence not simultaneously invite misinterpretation, fueling a cycle where absence itself is repackaged as evidence? These are not questions with easy answers, but questions that demand honest reflection from every consumer of media. The persistence of this narrative forces us to recognize how fragile the concept of truth has become in the digital age. Platforms like TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube reward immediacy and emotion rather than verification. A single clip replayed 1,000 times begins to feel like undeniable reality, even if it lacks context or authenticity. Should we not question whether what we are consuming is reality, or merely the product of an algorithm that values virality above accuracy? How many stories have we already accepted as fact simply because repetition created the illusion of truth? The global community surrounding BTS now faces a test that extends beyond fandom. It is a test of critical thinking, of media literacy, and of ethical responsibility. Do we amplify narratives that may be nothing more than illusions? Or do we pause to interrogate their foundations? Are we capable of resisting the psychological pull of scandal? Or are we so conditioned to seek drama that we no longer distinguish between fact and fabrication? Each reaction, each share, and each interpretation contributes either to clarity or to confusion. Ultimately, the question returns to the audience itself. Do you believe this story of Jungkook's withdrawal is real, or do you recognize the possibility that it has been exaggerated, distorted, or even constructed for sensational gain? If the ongoing debate has revealed anything, it is that uncertainty itself has become the defining feature of this controversy. Jungkook's visible distance from Jimin is no longer treated as a passing moment, but as a central narrative that shapes how millions perceive BTS. Yet, one must pause and ask, do we truly know what happened, or are we constructing elaborate meanings out of fragments deliberately stripped of context? What does it say about us as a global audience that we are willing to dissect expressions, postures, and silences as though they were irrefutable documents of truth? The reliance on digital fragments intensifies the instability of this discussion. A single video clip uploaded to TikTok, replayed in slow motion on YouTube, and debated endlessly on Twitter quickly becomes the foundation for sweeping conclusions. But is it not dangerous to mistake fragments of performance for comprehensive evidence? Can the selective nature of media consumption ever provide us with a full picture of reality? Or are we complicit in mistaking curated glimpses for ultimate truth because ambiguity unsettles us more than deception? This phenomenon reveals the deeper tension between authenticity and performance in modern celebrity culture. Silence itself is consumed as content. Absence is transformed into spectacle. We demand transparency, yet when none is given, we fill the void with our own narratives, often more sensational than any reality could ever be. But if our interpretations are driven less by fact and more by desire for coherence, then are we not guilty of fabricating illusions we later mistake for revelations? Does this not blur the very line between truth and spectacle beyond recognition? The implications are sobering. If Jungkook's distance is authentic, it testifies to the immense psychological strain imposed by global fame. If it is exaggerated, then it demonstrates the manipulative power of media ecosystems that thrive on speculation. And if it is entirely manufactured, then it exposes a disturbing reality that audiences worldwide can be mobilized by illusions constructed for profit. In each case, the central issue is not only the state of Jungkook and Jimin's relationship, but also the vulnerability of modern audiences to narratives that lack verification. This moment, therefore, serves as a mirror held up to society. Do we, as consumers of information, have the discipline to demand evidence before belief? Or do we surrender to the emotional gravity of speculation? Are we willing to reflect critically on the motives of media actors who present these stories? Or do we remain passive participants in cycles of sensationalism? If every unverified claim is amplified until it overshadows verifiable truth, what hope remains for clarity in an era where attention itself has become the most valuable currency? The pressing question is not simply whether Jungkook has withdrawn from Jimin, but whether we can resist the temptation to accept narratives without scrutiny. Each reader, each viewer, must confront their role. Do you amplify uncertainty, or do you resist it with skepticism? Do you consume spectacle passively, or do you interrogate its foundations with rigor? The controversy surrounding Jungkook and Jimin is not only about them, it is about us. It is a test of whether truth can survive in a world where speculation is endlessly more profitable than silence. Until the silence is broken with clarity, this controversy will remain unresolved. Yet the greater danger lies not in what Jungkook and Jimin may or may not reveal, but in how we, as an audience, choose to interpret, react, and participate. Will we allow ambiguity to become manipulation, or will we demand verifiable truth before surrendering to belief? The answer to this question will determine not only how this story is remembered, but also how future narratives are consumed in an age defined by spectacle over certainty.